Good evening, Namaste. I welcome you all to the Mahatma Letter study class, which we conduct every Friday. Before we start the study, let us invoke the universal prayer. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. So we continue to study the book, the Mahatma Letters to Sinnet, and we have been studying the Appendix 1, which was edited by Vic. The first part was studied, explained by Sister Catalina on last Friday. Today is the concluding part of it, the second and the last part, of course. Everybody knows Sister Catalina. To give her a brief introduction, she has been based at the international headquarters now, and an author, a poet, a translator, an editor, an international lecturer, secretary of the School of Wisdom, and who has been a board member of the TS Columbia, and also a board member of the revitalized World Federation of Young Theosophists. She has been an editor-in-chief and has founded a YouTube channel. So she has been deeply believing in her transformative power through her small acts of love and service. She is continuously doing it, and we heard her last Friday on the first part of this letter, the appendix part 1, and today we would be listening to her. After she finishes, there'll be a Hindi translation also happening by Sister Meenakshi, and then we'll have a quick suggestion or question answer session, and we'll conclude. So over to you, Sister Catalina.
Thank you very much, Sister Soralina, and thanks to all. Namaste to everyone here. And as always, a big pleasure to be with you tonight. And thank you to Brother Pradeep Mahapatra, Sister Soralina, and Sister Meenakshi, and the whole Indian section team. And as I always request everyone to do at the beginning of each session, please let's just have a moment of silence and just connect within us from heart to heart. Let's pause briefly, just a moment to center ourselves, to reflect and reconnect with the shared purpose that brings us together, no matter where we are. But we know that we are connected in thought, in intention, and by heart. So I'm going to share the screen. And the last time, due to some technical issues, I was not able to finish the entire first part of the letter. So I want to just begin with a glimpse of that part 1. And I will just remember the general context of the letter and the points that we were handling last session. So this letter from Master Cage to E.O. Hume that was written on November 1st, 1880, marks a key early exchange between the Mahatmas and the Western seekers. And it reflects Hume's growing involvement in theosophy and his shift from ornithology to humanitarian work. As we mentioned, parts of this letter appear in the occult world and appear as an Appendix 1 in the Mahatma Letters, the chronological series 4th edition. And also, mainly this letter is an answer to Hume's questions and proposal to the masters to work with other Englishmen that were also living in India about the creation of a Anglo-Indian branch. Uh, and they were asking and requesting the master to guide them. So last time we came across this acknowledgement of Hume's offer, where Master Cage thanks him for this sincere offer, noting the value uh, of the proposal, not only for humanity as a whole, but also to specifically those concerned with India's future. But we also saw that how the master is very clear in his answer when he presents the limits of the collaboration that the master can give actually to this group, and he explains why the master cannot accept the proposal of being the guides of this group of people that were interested in founding the Anglo-Indian branch. And mainly it is due to the different approaches between Eastern and Western ways of studying, of handling science and reality. And the third item that we were studying last time has to do on how the occult view is different from the conventional, occult science view is different from the conventional science point of view. And while doing so, Master Cage shares key insights into occult principles as distinct from mainstream scientific thought, such as three of them. I classify three of them. The first one is the matter and force are not separate, and all creation emerges through their constant interaction. The second one is the power of thought and the need for a broader perspective. He said, Master Cage remembers that the thought is a real and active force that shapes reality, and that modern science overlooks the vital role of the consciousness. So we study these two subsections of the third one, and but we couldn't cover the third part, that is the ancient wisdom versus modern science, or how Eastern esoteric science values knowledge only in terms of its moral and spiritual utility, whereas the conventional science values it more in terms of the gain that they can have on this. So let's just finalize this third subsection, and then we will continue with the rest of the letter. So in regard to this, the how the approaches are different from the Western and the Eastern. The master says, you say there are few branches of science with which you do not possess more or less acquaintance. And he's talking about the conventional science, the knowledge that Hume has about this conventional science. Let's remember that he was an ornithologist, and he was very acquainted and very near to the science. But the master tells him, but will you permit me to sketch for you the difference between the modes of physical called exact, often out of mere politeness? This is kind of an ironic remark, and metaphysical science? For us, poor and unknown philanthropists, no fact of either of these sciences is interesting except in the degree of its potentiality of moral results and in the ratio of its usefulness to mankind. So that is the real value that the master is putting here in this letter, of the knowledge of the occult science. And this is something that he's putting to Hume, but it's very relevant for us to understand and interiorize every time that we approach ourselves to the study of theosophy, and especially the practice of it. This passage shows the epistemological differences between the exact and occult sciences, leading to the mentioned point that the Eastern esoteric science values knowledge only in terms of its moral and spiritual utility. At the beginning of this passage, Master K.H. acknowledges Hume's scientific background, but contrasts it with Eastern esoteric science. which values this knowledge only when it leads to the moral and spiritual growth, to the transformation of the human being. Because what is the point of truth without compassion or transformation? If it is not with compassion or transformation, this approach, scientific approach, can be even seen as an incomplete approach that can even result on a harmful approach, because it ends up focusing mostly in the material part of the life in general. So this esoteric science, this occult science, which is the real value, which real value is its utility for the spirituality and the spiritual uplifting of the humanity, is seen or can lead to the path of occultism, understood as altruism mainly, and the renunciation of the self, the small self, in order to reach the big self, the self with capitals. And this, when I was reading this reminded me a small part of Subba Rao's esoteric writing, when he mentioned two paths. He says that there are two evolutionary paths available to humanity, and he says both having the same end, a glorified immortality. The one is a steady, natural path of progress through moral effort and practice of the virtues. It is the normal method followed by the vast mass of humanity. The other road is the precipitous path of occultism, through a series of initiations. Only a few specially organized, peculiar natures are fit for this path. So this makes us think of a very selfless view of knowledge. Actually, the seek for knowledge in this path is not valued as it is in the normal current science, for curiosity or for fame or recognition, but it is important because it has a power to inspire, to transform, to serve the greater, or to make human beings aligned to serve the greater good, which is the human regeneration. And as Master Cage mentions, for these poor and unknown philanthropists, he's referring to the masters, a fact's worth lies in its impact on human well-being. So this is a very important part of the letter, because it tells the importance of the approach and the value that has this path of the occult science in comparison with the conventional science. So Master Cage challenges Hume to consider whether abstract scientific theories truly address humanity's deeper needs. In the following paragraph, he continues expanding on this subject, and he directly inquires this, and he says, "May I not ask, what have the laws of Faraday, Tyndall, or others to do with philanthropy in their abstract relations with humanity, viewed as an integral whole? What care they for man as an isolated atom of this great and harmonious whole? Exact experimental science has nothing to do with morality, virtue, philanthropy, therefore can make no claim upon until sorry until it blends itself with the metaphysics, being but a cold classification of facts outside man, and existing before and after him. Her domain of usefulness ceases for us at the outer boundary of these facts." So here he says he sets a contrast between the cold classification of facts and the transformative power of spiritual insight. And this is a stark contrast. Master KH criticizes the materialist approach for being indifferent to humanity's deeper needs. And later in the letter, he continues, and though, as you say, you are impressed by the vast extent of the world's ignorance on every subject, yet you are content to spend your life in a work which aids only that same exact science. Despite your intuitive perceptions of the boundless riches of nature, you, with your great natural powers, will refuse to give a helping hand to humanity by beginning the work single-handed and trusting to time and the great law to reward your labor. This points out the irony that despite seeing science's limits, conventional science limits, Hume still supports it in his letters, since he mentioned he has a very wide knowledge of the conventional science. And Master Cage warns that Hume's reliance on external validation hinders his intuition and urges him to trust karma, act, and not wait for outside approval. This is for me a call to spiritual courage, is that call to like that point of like a pivotal point in the life of an individual, the call to the true service, and the call that true service comes from inner conviction, not external approval. The adept, or the person who has the interest in pursuing and the conviction in pursuing the spiritual path, must align the energy of his own energy, or her own energy, with higher laws, while rigid materialism wastes deeper potential. So this is the end of this part regarding the ancient wisdom versus the modern science, where Master KH makes some important points addressing Hume's intentions and Hume's words in his letter. And now from this point onwards, the letter the letter will focus on answering specific points regarding Hume's question in his letter, such as I have also classified them in three different items. So the first one is the visibility or influence of the masters and its limitations. The second one is, once more, he addresses this East-West misunderstanding, and this time he does it focusing in the education as a battleground where materialism and spirituality contend for the soul of modern society. And the third part is kind of a call to action toward a universal religious philosophy. So let us see Master's answer to what could be phrased in the following question. He kind of put this question to the master in his letter, where he asks, if the masters are real and as advanced as they claim, why haven't they made an obvious mark on history? This reveals on one side Hume's character. He always a little accepting, and we know also that from the one letter that we studied previously, the letter 135, which he gets involved with this Hudson uh, report, and finally he ends up retiring himself from the TS due to his doubt. But I mean, since this first letter that he wrote to Master KH, of which this one that we are studying is the answer, he has this kind of inquiry, kind of tell me, prove that that you are actually doing something for humanity. And Master answers to him, how could your world collect proofs of the doings of men who have, in this, when he is referring to these men as the masters, of course, who have sedulously kept close every possible, sorry, no. He's talking about the men, the humanity, who have sedulously kept close every possible door of approach by which the inquisitive could spy upon them. And now he refers to the masters. The prime condition of their success was that they should never be supervised or obstructed. What they have done, they know. All those outside their circle could perceive was results, the causes of which were masked from view. There never was a time within or before the so-called historical period when our predecessors were not molding events and making history, the facts of which were subsequently and invariably distorted by historians to suit contemporary prejudices. And he asks directly to Hume, are you quite sure that the visible heroic figures in the successive dramas were not often by their puppets? So Master K.H. challenges Hume's view that the Brotherhood has played no role in history, asserting that true spiritual influence is subtle and often invisible. Rather than controlling events, the Mahatmas work by shaping causes, guiding humanity through moral impulses, intuition, and inner vision. What historians credit to fate or great leaders may in fact reflect the unseen influence of these adepts. Their work aligns with karmic law and the divine plan, seeding transformative ideas and inspiring individuals to act at key moments in service of evolution. Each one of us should try to become more receptive to those influences, hence to purify ourselves in order to make ourselves more fit to contribute with the divine plan that is evolution. And at the same time, just give me 1 second. At the same time, Master KH is very clear that the Brotherhood is not omnipotent. So some way he's also showing the limitations of the masters. The cycles of karma and cosmic law are not suspended even for them. The rich have a limitation. So Master says in the letter following, the cycle must run the rounds. Periods of mental and moral light and darkness succeed each other as day goes night. The major and minor yugas, must be accomplished according to the established order of things. And we, borne along on the mighty tide, can only modify and direct some of its minor currents. If we had the powers of the imaginary personal God and the universal and immutable laws were but toys to play with, then indeed might we have created conditions that would have turned this earth into an Arcadia, that it used to refer to some imaginary idyllic paradise, for slothful souls. But having to deal with an immutable law, being ourselves its creatures, we have had to do what we could and rest thankful. The adept is the efflorescence of his age, and comparatively, few ever appear in a single century. These are also very important words from the master. He explains that adepts are also servants of the law. the law of karma. No, and this distinction is crucial because the masters are powerful, yes, because they have reached a level of evolution, a certain level of evolution, but their power operates within the boundaries of this universal law, particularly the cyclical realms of mental and moral darkness and light, or what in Eastern cosmology is called yugas. There is also a subtle critique of the Western theological notion of divine intervention and omnipotence, suggesting instead a cosmic realism. That transformation takes time, and spiritual labor is often slow, patient, and deeply respectful of natural laws. This idea is important for anyone on a spiritual path. It is a reminder that progress happens within constraints, and even the most enlightened beings are participants in and not controllers of the cosmic process, which includes the masters. The idea is cyclical. Ages of ignorance are followed by ages of light, but during the darker ages, which Master KH implies we are in, a spiritual world becomes harder, more hidden, and less likely to produce adepts in large numbers. And he continues on this line. He says, what else could one expect of men so nearly related to the lower kingdom from which they evolved? True also, our numbers are just now diminishing, but this is because, as I have said, we are of the human race, subject to its cyclic impulse and powerless to turn that back upon itself. So we who cannot stop the world from going in its destined direction are yet able to divert some part of its energy into useful channels. Think of us as demigods, and my explanation will not satisfy you. View us as simple men, and perhaps a little wiser as a result of special study, and it ought to answer your objection. This passage is a very interesting one because it reiterates a key philosophical teaching that humanity is still emerging from its animal origins and our spiritual development is often suppressed by passions and lower etheric energies. Master KH wraps this section with a call for a realistic view of the Mahatmas. And he says, if you expect demigods, you will always be disappointed. But if you can accept that we are simply human beings, albeit ones who have applied ourselves with great discipline and insight, then you will find the explanation sufficient. This is not only a profound moment of humility, but it is also and it's a power of humility because he doesn't deny the power of knowledge of the brotherhood, but insists on framing it not as a divine authority, but as earned wisdom, subject to natural limits. But it's also a kind of a reminder and an inspiration that ultimately, when we really apply ourselves to this spirit transformation, to the inner work, we are also meant at some point of of the evolution of those cycles to reach that point. And this is very inspiring for us because it talks about the dedication and the sincerity with which we apply ourselves to the spiritual path. And this also, when I was reading it, reminded me very much of this diagram by Dr. K.B.K. Nehru. I imagine many of you have come across to this, his wonderful images trying to explain these philosophical concepts because this diagram visually captures the theosophical idea that consciousness evolves through layers from the physical to the universal, and that each kingdom expresses a higher level of awareness, with humans capable of reaching intuitive and spiritual planes. It highlights that our journey is not just biological, but deeply inner and transformative. So we can see in the image how once we have reached we have reached that level, we can, I mean, we are right now in the human stage, but with this appliance to the study, to the transformation that is the master. The master also explains in the letter, we can reach this spiritual level and become illuminated. The master continues the letter, referring to another of Hume's queries in his letter that brings us to, again, the issue of East and West misunderstanding. And he says, what good, say you, is to be attained for my fellows? He is quoting Hume's words. It's to be attained for my fellows and myself, the two are inseparable, by this occult science. Then Master says, when the natives see that an interest is taken by the English and even by some high officials in India in their ancestral science and philosophies, they will themselves take openly to their study. And when they come to realize that the all divine phenomena were not miracles, but scientific effects, superstition will abate. Thus, the greatest evil that now oppresses and retards the revival of Indian civilization will be in time disappear. The present tendency of education is to make them materialistic and root out spirituality. With a proper understanding of what their ancestors meant by their writings and teachings, education will become a blessing, whereas now is often a curse. This response by Master KH shifts focus away from personal gain or secret powers, emphasizing instead the cultural and political potential of occult science for India. He argues that recognizing the scientific basis behind ancient Indian tradition could rekindle national pride in spiritual heritage, dispel superstition by reframing miracles as a natural phenomena, and counteract the materialism and alienation fostered by colonial education. This is a bold vision, my opinion. Esoteric knowledge is presented as a liberating force for entire societies, not just for individuals. Master Cage sees colonial interest in Indian philosophy as a potential catalyst for Indians to reclaim and reevaluate their own traditions. He also critiques Western style education for serving people from their spiritual roots, portraying it as a curse without metaphysical insight. And instead, he advocates for a synthesis of science and spirituality, where the ancient wisdom is demystified and it is revitalized. It is a kind of call for intercultural respect and a rebalancing of modern knowledge with ancestral depth. It's a calling to really look seriously to the divine wisdom. And he highlights the role that education has on that and why it is important that such initiatives as the one that Hume is proposing in his letter are important. And in the letter, he emphasizes this changed attitude towards the older philosophy will influence the native princes and wealthy men to endow normal schools for the education of pundits and old manuscripts. Hitherto, buried out of the reach of the Europeans, will again come to light, and with them, the key to much of that which has hidden for ages from the popular understanding, for which your skeptical Sanskritists do not care, which your religious missionaries do not dare to understand. So, nor one side nor the other are in tune with the value of this ancient manuscript and this ancient wisdom. Science will gain much, humanity everything. Under the stimulus of the Anglo-Indian Theosophical Society, we might in time see another golden age of Sanskrit literature. Such a movement will have the entire approbation of the home government, as it will act as a preventive against discontent and the sympathy of European scientists who, in their divisions of opinion, need the help of native pundits, now beyond their reach in the present state of mutual misunderstanding. So in the first part of the letter, he clearly states, we cannot be your guides, but we completely support this initiative of the Anglo-Indian Theosophical Society. And this is why, because it was at the time a very important uh, real, a very important initiative for this meeting between the East and West to begin and to happen in order to go in depth about this wisdom that was hidden until the moment, whether because of the superstition or because of the excess of rationalism or all the reason that he enunciates in this paragraph. And he says, science will gain much, humanity everything. This is a very important statement. And this passage also paints a hopeful picture of cultural and intellectual renewal. He suggests that if attitudes toward ancient Indian philosophy shift, it could inspire local elites to support the education of pandits and bring long hidden manuscripts back to circulation. And these texts that have been often ignored will help to no, what he says is not just about preserving tradition ultimately. It is about enriching, not only about preserving tradition, but also about enriching modern science and uplifting humanity as a whole. It is a way to ease also political tension that were at the time present as a historical moment. And in this context, not only this Indo-Aryan branch, but also the Theosophical Society play key role as the space for genuine exchange and collaboration. By fostering mutual understanding between Indians and Europeans, this shows itself as a path toward healing historical division and building a more balanced, spiritual, grounded modernity. And he even gives the example. I didn't quote this part, but he even gives an example of what was done in Ceylon, nowadays Sri Lanka, where the Theosophical Society, under the influence of Colonel Olcott, inspired both scholarly collaboration among Buddhist priests and the creation of secular schools. And he encourages the following. He says he encourages to do the same here in India with the Hinduism and the Western tradition. And he continues, the same causes. Oh, just give me 1 second. Someone is calling, but sorry, 1 second. It's related to you. The same, so he says, the same causes that are materializing the Hindu mind are equally affecting all Western thought. Education enthralls skepticism, but imprisons spiritualism. So he again is pointing the role of education. You can do immense good by helping to give the Western nation a secure basis upon which to reconstruct their Cambrian fate. What they need is the evidence that Asiatic psychology alone supplies. The era of blind faith is gone. That of inquiry is here. The era of blind faith is gone. That of inquiry is here. This is a very nice statement. Inquiry that only unmasks error without discovering anything upon which the soul can build will but make iconoclasts. Iconoclasm form or iconoclast from its very destructiveness can give nothing. It can only raise. But man cannot rest satisfied with bare negation. Agnosticism is but a temporary halt. This is the moment to guide the recurrent impulse which must soon come, and which will push the age toward extreme atheism, or drag it back to the extreme sacerdotalism, if it is not led to the primitive and soul-satisfying philosophy of the Aryans or the ancient wisdom. So he is really being very bold and very clear in his statement. And here he also makes a sharp critique of both Western and modernized Western thought, warning that excessive skepticism fueled by contemporary education is stripping humanity of a spiritual grounding. He argues that while blind faith is no longer viable, mere doubt without deeper insight leads to destructive iconoclasm, offering nothing to the soul. What people truly need, he claims, is not just the exposure of falsehoods, but a new foundation, one that wisdom can provide. He sees a critical moment at hand. It's like unless this spiritual vacuum is filled with meaningful, soul-nourishing ideas, the society will swing toward either extreme atheism or religious dogmatism. And he continues. The same marvels that the spiritual is quote in opposition to the dogmas of eternal perdition and atonement, the Catholics sworn to witness as the strongest proof of their faith in miracles. The skeptics make game of both. All are blind and there is no one to lead them. You and your colleagues may help furnish the materials for a needed universal religion philosophy, one impregnable to scientific assault, because itself the finality of absolute science, and a religion that is indeed worthy of the name, since it includes the relations of man physical to man psychical, and of the two to all that is above and beyond them and below them. This resonates deeply with the theosophical vision, according to which wisdom religion is the origin of all the modern religions, which were founded by different masters of wisdom. The difference is that every teaching among the religion is that the difference that has every religion is due to the emphasis on different aspects of the truth that the founder of each religion chose to teach. But as we know, the all the religions have the same ground, a common ground. And Blavatsky reminds us in her collected writings of the same. She says, to the fundamental doctrines of occultism and esoteric philosophy are one and the same the world over, and that the secret meaning under the outward shell of every old religion, however much they may conflict in appearance, is the outcome of and proceeds from the universal wisdom religion. The modes of thought and of its expression must necessarily differ. This also reminds us that one of the three objects, the second one of the TS, is to reconcile all religions, to make a comparative study of science and religions under a same view, because all of them are based on eternal verities. So the way, as the master says, that a religion that is indeed worthy of the name is when it is a study from the point of view of the occult science and from the point of view of acknowledging the common background that all of them have. Then the last paragraph of the letter serves as both as an invitation and a challenge, calling the reader to dedicate themselves, I mean, in this case, Hume specifically, but also us are the readers today of these letters, to dedicate ourselves to a higher purpose. And he says, it's not this word a slight sacrifice. It's not this word a slight sacrifice. Let's ask ourselves that also. And if after reflection, you should decide to enter this new career, let it be known that your society is no miracle mongering or banqueting club, nor especially given to the study of phenomenalism. Its chief aim is to extirpate current superstition and skepticism, and from long sealed ancient fountains to draw the proof that man may shape his own future destiny, and know for a certainty that he can live hereafter if he only wills, and that all phenomena are but manifestations of natural law, to try to comprehend which is the duty of every intelligent being. This reminds me a lot one of the reasons why the Theosophical Society moves from US to India, because at the time it began, of course, they were showing these phenomena, etc., but Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott realized that people were focusing more on that phenomena than in the real objective of the the bringing the ancient wisdom to modern time, that was this self-transformation. And I guess this is also the call of the master that he's doing here. And he continues, you have personally devoted many years to a labor benevolently conceived as consciously carried out. Give out, consciously carried out, sorry. Give to your fellow creatures, have the attention you have bestowed on your little birds. He is referring as his labor as an ornithologist. And you will round off a useful life with a grand and noble work. And this last sentence is very beautiful. Give to your fellow creatures, I mean to your fellow humans, have the attentions, really devote your energy, your attention, your service to your fellow human creatures, and you will round off a useful life with a grand and noble work. And this is a call for us also to devote our lives to make ourselves suitable to fulfill better this divine plan and the pursuit of the divine plan, and to serve to the humanity, to dedicate ourselves to that work. This sets the tone for a deeper commitment, not only to the theosophical ideal, not the one of chasing miracles or spectacle, but a serious moral and intellectual effort. The aim is to replace the superstition or the blind skepticism with a philosophy grounded in ancient wisdom and natural law. It's an appeal to Hume's past dedication and compassion, urging him to extend that same care towards humanity by helping illuminating the spiritual potential that lies within us all. It is worth the sacrifice. This is a question that all of us should make to ourselves. Is it worth the sacrifice to dedicate our efforts and life to a cause that benefits entire humanity? And the message of Master KH to Hume and to all of us is very simple. It is worth it. The work is hard. The forces of materialism, ignorance, and fanatism are strong, but so is the potential of revival. If we rise to the task, another golden age of knowledge and spirit may come again. In sum, this letter is more than a response to organizational questions about the proposal of creating an Anglo-Indian branch. It goes much, much deeper than that. It is kind of a manifesto of sorts for the Theosophical project, for this dedication of our life. This letter from Master Kutumi is a call to action. It reads like an spiritual uh, invitation for the practical application of the occult science, not in a mystical isolation, but in the revival of ancient wisdom, the practice of the wisdom in our daily life. Master KH sees humanity at a dangerous crossroads. That was in 1880s, but it's completely relevant nowadays as well. Humanity is at a dangerous crossroads between, at that time, dogma and nihilistic disbelief. And at this time, we have also a lot of things that make us be in that dangerous crossroad. Master critiques both religious literalism and scientific skepticism for their failure to nourish the soul or explain life's deeper mystery. Only a universal spiritual philosophy rooted in ancient wisdom and compatible with reason can offer a meaningful alternative, a living philosophy that unites the physical and spiritual dimensions of our existence. And his final appeal is to take one's dedication and channel it toward the collective good, helping humanity evolve through truth, service, and the recovery of the lost spiritual heritage of humanity. So let's just reflect upon this. I guess this letter really has a lot of insights that we can bring to our times, bring to our life, with which ultimately the purpose of any study of any book, to be able to meditate, reflect upon, and practice that. And thank you very much to all for the patience. With this, we end the study of this Appendix 1, which is the first letter from Cage to Hume. Okay, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Catalina. I mean, it was really, when you summed up, the gist came up for pondering and maybe for our day-to-day practice. That's really nice. I would request Sister Meenakshi if she could sum up in Hindi the translated version of whatever Sister Catalina explained to us. I request you to please do it in the Hindi version.
सभी को नमस्ते और थैंक यू सिस्टर कैटरीना। हम महात्मा KH का ह्यूम को जो पहला लेटर लिखा था 1880 में, उसका अभी सेकंड पार्ट देख रहे हैं। इस पार्ट में मास्टर कहते हैं ह्यूम को कि आप कहते हैं कि विज्ञान की कुछ ऐसी शाखाएं हैं जिनके बारे में आप कुछ नहीं जानते, लेकिन मुझे आपको भौतिक विज्ञान और अध्यात्म विज्ञान के बीच के अंतर को और भी स्पष्ट रूप से बताने की क्या आप अनुमति देंगे? हम बेचारे अज्ञात जनहितैषियों के लिए इनमें से किसी भी विज्ञान का कोई भी तथ्य उसके नैतिक रूप से परिणामों की मात्रा और मानव जाति के लिए उसकी उपयोगिता को छोड़कर रोचक नहीं है। फिर क्या मैं यह नहीं पूछ सकता कि फैराडे, टिंडल या अन्य वैज्ञानिकों के लॉज का मानवता जिसे एक अभिन्न रूप में देखा जाता है, उसके साथ बौद्धिक संबंध में परोपकार से क्या लेना देना है? इस महान और सामंजस्यपूर्ण समग्रता के एक पृथक परमाणु के रूप में मनुष्य के लिए उन्हें क्या परवाह है? ब्रह्मांडीय ऊर्जा चिरकालिक है, पदार्थ अविनाशी है। भौतिक प्रयोगात्मक विज्ञान का नैतिकता, सद्गुण, परोपकार से क्या कोई लेना देना नहीं है। इसलिए जब तक यह आध्यात्मिक विज्ञान से नहीं जुड़ता, तब तक यह हमारी मदद करने का दावा नहीं कर सकता। मनुष्य के इर्द गिर्द के तथ्यों का एक नीरा वर्गीकरण होने के नाते इन तथ्यों के बाहरी सीमा में ही हमारे लिए इसकी उपयोगिता का क्षेत्र समाप्त हो जाता है। और यद्यपि जैसा कि आप कहते हैं कि आप हर विषय पर दुनिया की व्यापक अज्ञानता को भलीभांति जानते हैं, फिर भी आप अपना जीवन ऐसे काम में बिताने में संतुष्ट हैं जो केवल उसी भौतिक विज्ञान के आधार पर है। प्रकृति के असीम भंडार के बारे में आपको बोध होने के बावजूद आप अपनी असीम शक्तियों को बिना किसी सहायता के ही मानवता की मदद करने के लिए काम करने से इनकार कर देंगे और अपने श्रम को पुरस्कृत करने के लिए समय और कर्म के महान नियम पर भरोसा करेंगे। आगे मास्टर कहते हैं कि आपके कई प्रश्न हैं, जैसे कि हमारे सिद्ध संघ ने विश्व के इतिहास में अपनी कोई छाप नहीं छोड़ी है, यह आपका प्रश्न है। उस पर मास्टर कहते हैं कि आपके जगत के लोग उन लोगों के कार्यों के सबूत कैसे एकत्रित कर सकते हैं जिन्होंने जिज्ञासु वृत्ति के लोगों के लिए अपने हर एक द्वार को सावधानी पूर्वक बंद कर रखा है। उनकी सफलता की मुख्य शर्त यही थी कि उन पर कभी निगरानी या बाधा नहीं डाली जानी चाहिए। वे जानते हैं उन्होंने क्या किया है। उनके क्षेत्र के बाहर के लोग केवल परिणाम देख सकते थे, जिसका कारण लोगों की दृष्टि से ओझल था। युगों को अपना काल चक्र पूरा करना ही चाहिए। जैसे दिन के बाद रात आती है, वैसे ही मानसिक और नैतिकता के प्रकाश और अंधकार का सॉरी वैसे ही मानसिक और नैतिकता के प्रकाश और अंधकार का कालचक्र होता है। प्रधान और लघु युगों को यानी मेजर एंड माइनर युगों को चीजों के साथ स्थापित क्रम के अनुसार पूरा किया जाना चाहिए। और हम शक्तिशाली प्रवाह पर बहते हुए केवल इसकी छोटी छोटी धाराओं में परिवर्तन कर सकते हैं और निर्देशित कर सकते हैं। यदि हमारे पास काल्पनिक व्यक्ति सदृश ईश्वर की शक्तियां होती और यूनिवर्सल और अपरिवर्तनीय नियम केवल खिलवाड़ के खिलौने मात्र होते, तो निस्संदेह हम ऐसी परिस्थितियां उत्पन्न कर सकते थे जो इस पृथ्वी को उन्नत आत्माओं के स्वर्ग लोक में बदल देती। लेकिन अपरिवर्तनीय नियम के तहत होने के कारण, उसी से उपजे जीव होने के नाते हमें वह करना होता है जो हम कर सकते हैं और आभारी होना होता है। सिद्ध पुरुष अपने युग में खिला हुआ उन्नत पुष्प है और ऐसे सत्पुरुष प्रत्येक शताब्दी में विरले ही होते हैं। जिस लोअर किंगडम से मनुष्य उत्क्रांत हो चुके हैं, उसी से जुड़े रहे लोगों से और क्या उम्मीद की जा सकती है। यह भी सच है कि हमारी संख्या अभी घट रही है, लेकिन ऐसा इसीलिए है क्योंकि जैसे कि मैंने कहा है, हम मानव जाति के हैं जो उसके चक्रीय आवेग के अधीन है और उस इम्पल्स को वापस मोड़ने में असमर्थ है। हम जो दुनिया को उसकी नियत दिशा में जाने से रोक नहीं सकते हैं, फिर भी उसकी ऊर्जा के कुछ अंश को उपयोगी चैनल्स में मोड़ने में सक्षम हैं। यदि आप हमें देवता सदृश मानते हैं, तब आप मेरे इस स्पष्टीकरण से संतुष्ट नहीं होंगे। विशेष अध्ययन के परिणाम स्वरूप आप हमें थोड़े अधिक ज्ञानी मनुष्य के रूप में समझे, तब आपको आपके आक्षेप का फल मिलेगा। आप कहते हैं, इन गुह्य विद्याओं से मुझे और मेरे साथियों को क्या लाभ होगा? मास्टर कहते हैं कि जब भारत के मूल निवासी देखेंगे कि अंग्रेज और यहाँ तक कि भारत के उच्च पदाधिकारी भी उनके पूर्वजों के विज्ञान और दर्शन में रुचि ले रहे हैं, तब वे स्वयं भी खुलकर उसका अध्ययन करेंगे। और जब उन्हें यह एहसास होगा कि पुरानी दैवीय घटनाएं चमत्कार नहीं बल्कि विज्ञान के आधार पर थी, तब अंधविश्वास समाप्त हो जाएगा। इस प्रकार भारतीयों के पुनरुत्थान का दमन करने वाली सबसे बड़ी बुराई आने वाले समय में समाप्त हो जाएगी। अभी की शिक्षण पद्धति का रुझान उन्हें भौतिकवादी बनाकर आध्यात्मिकता को जड़ से उखाड़ना है। अपने पूर्वजों के लेखन कार्य और शिक्षाओं का क्या अर्थ था, इसकी उचित समझ के साथ शिक्षण वरदान बनेगा, जबकि अब यह एक अभिशाप हो गया है। पुरातन दर्शन शास्त्र के प्रति यह बदला हुआ रुख भारतीय राजाओं और धनियों को छात्रों की शिक्षा के लिए विद्यालय स्थापित करने के लिए प्रेरित करेगा और पुराने मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट्स यानी पांडुलिपि हस्तलिखित ग्रंथ जो यूरोपीय लोगों की पहुंच से दूर छिपाए हुए थे, वे फिर से प्रकाश में आ जाएंगे और उनके साथ ही उन बहुत सी बातों की कुंजी भी सामने आ जाएगी जो सामान्य जनों से छिपी हुई थी, जिसके बारे में आपके संदेहवादी संस्कृतवादी परवाह नहीं करते, जिसे समझने की हिम्मत आपके धार्मिक मिशनरी नहीं करते। विज्ञान को बहुत कुछ हासिल करना होगा और मानव जाति को सब कुछ। एंग्लो इंडियन थियोसॉफिकल सोसाइटी के प्रोत्साहन के तहत हम समय के साथ संस्कृत साहित्य का एक स्वर्ण युग देख सकते हैं। इस तरह के आंदोलन को गृह सरकार का पूरा समर्थन प्राप्त होगा, क्योंकि यह असंतोष के खिलाफ निवारक के रूप में काम करेगा और यूरोपीय संस्कृतवादियों की सम्मति भी मिलेगी, जिनमें विचार के मतभेदों के कारण देशी पंडितों की मदद की आवश्यकता होगी, जो अब आपसी गलतफहमी की वर्तमान स्थिति में उनकी पहुंच से बाहर है। आगे का ट्रांसलेशन सिस्टर सुषमा जी ने किया था, जिसे मैं प्रस्तुत कर रही हूँ। मास्टर कहते हैं कि अगर हम सिलोन यानी श्रीलंका की ओर देखें, तो हम पाएंगे कि वहां के सबसे विद्वान भिक्षुगण टीएस के नेतृत्व में बौद्ध दर्शन की नई व्याख्या हेतु एकजुट हो रहे हैं। सिंहली युवाओं के शिक्षण के लिए एक धर्मनिरपेक्ष थियोसॉफिकल स्कूल खोला गया। हिंदू मन को प्रभावित करने वाला सबब सभी पश्चिमी विचारों को समान रूप से प्रभावित कर रहा है। शिक्षा संदेहवाद को बढ़ावा देती है, लेकिन अध्यात्मवाद को बंदिस्त करती है। आप पश्चिमी देशों को उनके ढहते विश्वास को पुनः बनाने के लिए एक सुरक्षित आधार देने में मदद करके बहुत ही अच्छा कार्य कर सकते हैं। उन्हें केवल एशियाई मनोविज्ञान द्वारा दिए जाने वाले प्रमाण की आवश्यकता है। अंधविश्वास का युग चला गया है और अनुसंधान का युग आ गया है। अनुसंधान यानी इंक्वायरी जो केवल त्रुटि को उजागर करती है, बिना अनुसंधान जिसके तहत एक जीव कुछ कर सके इस बात की खोज किए बगैर वह खामियों को उजागर करती है, जिससे केवल संदेहवादी विद्रोही ही बनेंगे। विद्रोह अपने विध्वंसक रूप में कुछ नहीं दे सकता, वह केवल नष्ट कर सकता है, लेकिन मनुष्य केवल निषेध से कुछ नहीं कर सकता है। अज्ञेयवादी केवल कुछ काल तक ही सीमित है। यह उस समय समय पर आने वाले संवेग को मार्ग दिखाने का क्षण है, जो शीघ्र ही आना चाहिए और जो इस युग को अति नास्तिकता की ओर ले जाएगा या इसे अति पुरोहितवाद की ओर वापस खींच लेगा। यदि इसे आर्यों के प्राचीन और आत्मसंतुष्टदायक दर्शन की ओर न ले जाया गया तो वही चमत्कार जो अध्यात्मवादी चिरंतन नरकवास और प्रायश्चित के मत के विरोध में उद्धृत करते हैं, कैथोलिक लोग इसे चमत्कारों में अपने विश्वास का सबसे मजबूत सबूत मानते हुए इसे देखने के लिए उमड़ पड़ते हैं। अज्ञेयवादी दोनों का खेल खेलते हैं। सभी अंधे अज्ञानी हैं और उन्हें राह दिखाने वाला कोई नहीं। आप और आपके सहकर्मी एक आवश्यक सार्वभौमिक धार्मिक दर्शन के लिए सामग्री यानी ज्ञान प्रदान करने में मदद कर सकते हैं। ऐसी ज्ञान सामग्री जो वैज्ञानिक हमले के लिए अभेद्य है, क्योंकि यह स्वयं पूर्ण विज्ञान की पराकाष्ठा है और एक धर्म है जो वास्तव में नाम के योग्य है, क्योंकि इसमें मनुष्य के भौतिक से लेकर मानसिक संबंध और उन दोनों के ऊपर और नीचे की सभी चीजों के संबंध शामिल है। क्या यह थोड़ा त्याग करने के लायक नहीं है? और अगर विचार करने के बाद आप इस नए क्षेत्र में प्रवेश करने का निर्णय लेते हैं, तो यह लोगों को बता दे कि आपकी सोसाइटी कोई चमत्कार का प्रचार करने वाली या दावत खाना वाला क्लब नहीं, न ही विशेष रूप से घटनावाद के अध्ययन के लिए समर्पित है। इसका मुख्य उद्देश्य वर्तमान स्थिति के अंधविश्वासों और संशयवाद को समाप्त करना है तथा लंबे समय से सीलबंद हुए प्राचीन स्रोतों से यह प्रमाण निकालना है कि मनुष्य अपने भविष्य की नियति को स्वयं आकार दे सकता है तथा यह निश्चित रूप से जान सकता है कि यदि वह चाहे तो इसके पश्चात भी जीवित रह सकता है तथा यह कि सभी घटनाएं यानी फिनोमिना प्राकृतिक नियमों की अभिव्यक्तियां मात्र है, जिन्हें समझने का प्रयास करना प्रत्येक बुद्धिमान जीव का कर्तव्य है। आपने व्यक्तिगत रूप से कई वर्षों तक ऐसे कार्य के लिए समर्पित किए हैं जिसकी कल्पना परोपकार पूर्वक की गई थी और जिसे आपने कर्तव्य निष्ठा से पूरा किया। मानव जाति को भी उतना ही ध्यान दीजिए जितना आप अपने छोटे पंछियों पर देते हैं और आप एक उपयोगी जीवन को एक भव्य और महान कार्य के साथ व्यतीत करेंगे। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Sister Meenakshi. I would request anyone else would like to add something out of their understanding or can question of any point which the person couldn't understand during this deliberation. Otherwise, we will do a final prayer or the closing prayer. Thank you, Sister Catalina. The two parts of the session were really good. At least for those who didn't read through this annexure, could understand like the summary part you did was no doubt those 6-7 points were to be grasped and to be pondered upon, as I already told you. Thank you so much. You have done it beautifully with all the quotes and the underlines, and the way you have given importance to whatever paragraphs or the sentences or the words. That is very catchy, and I really like the way you presented. Thank you so much for that. And it was a wonderful presentation. So we will do a closing prayer and then close the session. Okay. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Thank you everyone for joining us. We will have our Sunday session again, same time, 6 o'clock, day after tomorrow, at this Indian section Zoom link. Till then, goodbye and see you again. Thank you. Bye.